Hi, it's Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast. And again, this time I'm turning my attention back to the 2026 NFL draft, which is my strength area, my real strength area. I think I'm pretty good in every areas, but this is the one that I say, if you want to find out really what's going to happen in the 2026 draft, I'll be one of, if not the best sources you can go to. I consider myself the best, but there you go. And I don't normally say things like that about myself. So, what I'm going to do in this one, after blagging about myself, is look at the quarterback situation. Now, everybody tends to look at the candidature and how strong the class is and say, oh, yeah, they're good enough to go in round one. They're a brilliant player, blah, 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 blah. But it's irrelevant if there's no need out there. You know, if a load of new cars come on the market, but everybody's quite happy with what they've got, they're not going to be buying. So you have to bear that in mind. So what I wanted to look at is to go through each of the 32 NFL teams and assess their level of need for a quarterback, and therefore who might be likely to go first for a quarterback. So let's look at the ones that are most likely to go for a quarterback early. Well, the New York Jets top that list. Justin Fields got a third opportunity at being an NFL starting quarterback for the Jets this season, but he failed again. And with Tyrod Taylor being the guy who's come in as a 36-year-old, is he, veteran, that's not going to wash going forwards. So the Jets need a new quarterback for sure. So they'll be one of the early round one teams that will be going quarterback surely. Um, Cleveland Browns. Well, the Browns have one of the most confused pictures regarding their quarterback role. Um, you know, they tried Joe Flacco. They've shipped him off to Cincinnati. He played all right for them, but he was always just going to be a gap filler. So he's gone. Dylan Gabriel's in now, not doing brilliantly. So at some point, it looks like they'll give Shedeur Sanders a chance. If that doesn't work out, they've still got Deshaun Watson sitting there in the background somewhere under contract till 2027. But if nothing, if they've ditched Flacco, Gabriel Sanders doesn't work out, they're left with the choice of either go back to Deshaun Watson or go for a new other quarterback. Well, it could well be the latter. And the third one I've got in this section are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, Aaron Rodgers is there and playing well, but he's going to be 42 soon. He's on a 1 year deal. Um, you know, if the Steelers went deep into the postseason, would that convince Rodgers to give it another go to come back for him next year? If they don't make the postseason, then he and the Steelers may decide enough's enough. If they somehow went all the way and won it all, I think that would be Rodgers saying, that's it for me. I'm going out on the highest of highs. But there's a number of ways you can think. And even if he didn't retire, they're still going to need to recruit a quarterback at some point. So they could well be round one players for a quarterback. So let's look at the next tier. Teams who might look for a quarterback in the 2026 draft. Probably not as urgent need as the three, the Jets, Browns, and Steelers, but could well be in the market. Start with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders have given Geno Smith that big 3 year contract, and that looks a heavy load for him to carry now. He's played. He's played badly so far this season. Isn't playing well. They're paying him big money. They've got some good young prospects there. Brock Bowers, Ashton Gianti. Don't waste their young years. So, in my opinion, they should go for a quarterback in the 2026 draft, and let him compete with Geno Smith for the starting role. If he wins it, then Smith will be like Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, a high-paid backup, and maybe if somebody comes in for him, they let him go. But I think they have to go for a quarterback, and they could well do so. Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford has 17 quality seasons behind him, and it's about 318. How long will he want to carry on? And a bit like Rodgers, well, very much like Rodgers in Pittsburgh, at some point you've got to replace him anyway. So, he's under contracts for next season. So it might be the good time to get the young guy in, sit behind Stafford for a year maybe, and then he's there waiting to come in. A bit like Jordan Love did in Green Bay. Right, Miami Dolphins. Well, Tua is just getting worse and worse. Let's be honest, he's struggling so badly, and the Dolphins are in a mess now. They've still got receiving talent there, assuming they can keep Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on board. Darren Waller's come back. So get a quarterback in there seems an option for Miami. And the final one I put in there, and this is really, they've just come into this section after losing to the Chargers last night, the Minnesota Vikings. Now, they're 3-4, struggling to make the postseason, have a really tough slate of games ahead of them for the remainder of the season. So they look like they might miss out on the postseason. If they did, then that would be seen as a big failure for Minnesota. And it would also say that J.K. McCarthy has failed to turn things round. So depending on his levels of play, they could well be in the market for a quarterback too. So there are my 7 that I think are the most likely to go quarterback early in the 2026 draft. The last 4 of them are by no means certain to do so. The Raiders, Rams, Dolphins, and Vikings. But they could all be players for quarterbacks. So teams who are less likely to do so. Atlanta Falcons, still got Kirk Cousins there. Who knows what's going to happen with that before the trade deadline. Michael Penix is not having his best season and is struggling. So if Cousins were trading away and Penix continued to struggle, then the Falcons might be in the market for a quarterback. Carolina Panthers, well, Bryce Young's probably done enough to keep his job for 2026. New Orleans Saints, all 3 of these in the NFC South. Spencer Rattler's done okay for them, but they're not winning games. Will they give Tyler Shugg a shot at some point? Well, if they do and neither of them work out, then they might be back in the market for a quarterback. Right, the outsiders to do so. Arizona Cardinals. Now, I've banged on long enough that I don't think Kyler Murray's the answer for the Cardinals, but he's under contract till 2029. And like I say, this is one of the situations where they've appeared tied to a quarterback that, in my opinion, is never going to get the job done for them. But that's my opinion. Their opinion is different, and it's difficult to see the way they would ditch Murray at this point. Mind you, if they ended up with like 3 or 4 wins this season, then that might be the nuclear time to just blow everything up and start again. Denver Broncos. Bo Nix is not playing well this season. Yeah, the team's 5-2, but he's been so inconsistent, and his play to me doesn't look great at all. So if they finished out the season badly, that might sound a shock to somebody talking about a quarterback change for a team that's 5-2, top of their division. But I wouldn't rule it out. The Jacksonville Jags, Trevor Lawrence is becoming the new Kyler Murray. His play levels are not what they drafted at first overall pick of a so-called generational talent, which everybody thought he was, but he's not playing like it. So if the Jags continue to struggle, that owner's not averse to making big decisions. Can't rule it out. New York Giants, well, Jackson Dart surely. He's revitalised that offense, so they're not going to be making a change. Seattle Seahawks, Sam Darnold, jury's still out. Could go one way or the other in the second half of the season. Seahawks are going well at the moment. If that continues, he'll be all right. If it doesn't, well, they might be going back to the drawing board. The Tennessee Titans, they spent the first overall pick on Cam Ward, and normally, and you should give somebody more than one season. He's got a lot of issues to sort out, sloppy turnovers. I mean, fumbling the ball away a couple of times this season and just like, what are you doing style? And some bad footwork issues. He's got issues to sort out, but surely he'll get another season to do that. And then we get to the teams that are just you can't really perceive a way they're going to go quarterback in 2026. But Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson under contract till 2028. Enough said. Josh Allen is under contract to 2031 in Buffalo. So again, no need. Chicago Bears, Kalen Williams is having a good season, becoming a really good quarterback in the NFL, so no need for them to change. Cincinnati, yeah, Joe Burrow's got injured again, but they're not going to change. He's under contract till 2030. Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, having a strong season. So, Jerry Jones isn't going to make a change there. And they've got so many defensive needs. Surely that's where they'll look. Detroit Lions, Jared Goff looks secure. Well, he is secure. Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love. again, so far having a good season again, a tidy season, efficient season, but he's not doing anything more than that, to be honest. But as long as the Packers go well, he's safe there and he's under contract till 2029. Similar situation really with CJ Stroud in Houston, except the team aren't doing so well. But he has played better in recent weeks, and he really does seem to go as that O line goes. So I can't see the Texans looking to make a change there. Before the season, everybody would have said the Indianapolis Colts were near the top of the list. Well, Daniel Jones has answered that one, and they're not going to be changing there, surely, unless he completely falls apart in the second half of the season. Um, Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, 2032 contract. Bye bye. Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert's playing brilliant. No need to change. New England Patriots, Drake May, one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. Not going to change. Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts having his best season for me. So they're not going to be changing. San Francisco gave the big contract to Brock Purdy. I know he's had his injury worries this year, but they've given him the money. They're not going to be changing. Tampa Bay Bucks, Baker Mayfield is having an MVP type season, so there's going to be no change there. And the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels, they're not going to be changing him. So we go back to those 7 I said earlier, really, who might be in the market, and then if we look at the outsiders to do so, if I'm quickly running back down that list and thinking, is there anybody that actually is probably possibly Seattle are the most likely, and then you've got Atlanta and the Saints. So there's between 7 and 10 teams that could go, but it's probably if all of those teams ended up in the quarterback market, there'd be some free agents out there as well. So it's not a given that they'll be going in the draft. So I would say there's between 3 and 6 teams who maybe 7, depending on the Minnesota situation, who could look for a quarterback in the early rounds of the 2026 draft. Cleveland, the Jets, and Pittsburgh being the ones. Maybe the Raiders, Rams, and Dolphins, and also the Vikings now. So they're the teams that I'd be looking at. 9 other teams are long shots to go early for a quarterback. And when you're talking about the Jets and the Rams as well, Jets and the Rams. Forgetting that Rodgers keeps moving about. Pittsburgh and the Rams. If Rodgers and Stafford stayed there for another season, then the need to go early is not there. Certainly round 1. So they might be more day 2 candidates to look for a quarterback. So as I say, 9 other teams are long shots to go early for a quarterback. Some of them may use a mid-round pick on one and see if they get a quarterback who's better than what they currently have. So, when you're looking at some of those teams I've talked about, say Geno Smith, for instance, take a mid-round, keep him on board, see if he plays better next season, get a mid-rounder in to compete with him, and if he turns out to be one that's better than a mid-rounder, then you've got to win. But you've really got little downside to doing it. But I would say demand does not look high right now. So it could be we see no more than 3 quarterbacks go in round 1 and then 1 or 2 on day 2 before the rest of the class may have to wait till day 3 to get taken. So, you look at some big boards and you see like 10 quarterbacks in the top 100. Well, it's just not going to happen. 10 quarterbacks are not going to go in the first 3 rounds of this draft. So it's distorting the rest of the board. So for me, there's just Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza. I would have them the other way around personally, that are standing out. Ty Simpson's having a good season in Alabama. So those 3 might be the guys that are pushing for round 1, because there will be a need in round 1. But then beyond that, it's a dogfight amongst all the other group to get the 1 or 2 that might go in on day 2. And then, we might see the likes of, as we saw last season with Shedder Sanders got talked about a lot, but other ones like Quinn Ewers dropped way to the end of the draft when on big boards, generally, he was like ranked between 50 and 100. Well, that tells you that the same thing's likely to happen to these guys again this season because the demand just isn't there. So that's it. Anyway, looking at that from a holistic point of view, supply and demand. Just sort of throw it out there because I think everybody gets carried away with saying how good quarterbacks are and what round they should go in. Well, that's only half the picture. So I just wanted to put that out there. So hope you found that informative and useful. I'll probably do something similar for running backs and wide receivers um, in the coming days and weeks because I just think it's useful, particularly for these so-called skill positions, to look at the need because you really can assess it according to what teams have currently got. All right, I'll see you soon. So I will do ones for running back and wide receivers. I'll commit to that now. So look for those in the next week or two. All right, see you soon.